Hey everybody, this is Monty Steve. We're rolling out CEO to CEO, the way to go. When you think about the movement that we are all seeing, there's a movement asunder. We're obviously in a state of emergency. We clearly have a mental evaluation that is going on for the entire country to see. But for those of you who don't know, there is a brother of mine, a brother truly who has checked and double checked this society, one that we all need to continue to support, get behind, and love. Um, I love him. I want us as brothers to be able to have an emotional language about what we do. More than anything, get your dome right. At the end of the day, we have to grow emotionally. We have to be able to share our pain, to have accountability partners. You know, when I listen to and I can be proud, a brother really understand that there is something there. I know for a fact we've been able to lean into you for the last few years to understand that mental health is an issue that we have. Can you share with us, Charlamagne, why, how, and even the foundation that literally has a beautiful goal to give us some mental freedom?
Yeah, Munson, thank you for having me. And I mean, the how for me is just that, I wanted to be a better human, and like I knew a lot of people who, were going to therapy, and it was just one of those things I would always just ask about, because when somebody's really doing the work on themselves, you can see it. When that healing starts to happen in a person, you can see it. It's like an inner glow they have that just makes you gravitate towards them. And I'm a curious person, so I just start asking questions. And um, you know, in 2010, I had got clinically diagnosed with anxiety, and I didn't even realize that I had actual anxiety because at the time I had just gotten fired from radio for the fourth time, and I was back living at home with my mom at like 32 years old. And I think my daughter was like 2, and my wife, who was my girlfriend at the time, she had moved back with her mom and her dad. And I remember driving down I-26 in South Carolina, feeling that same feeling that I've always felt my whole life, like I'm having a heart attack, heart palpitations, going crazy, shortness of breath. I got to pull over, drink some water, take some deep breaths. I'm like, I'm going to the hospital tomorrow, again, to make sure there's nothing wrong with my heart, even though I had been to the emergency room 3-4 times in my life, just thinking I'm having a heart attack. And, that was the first time that a doctor said to me, after telling me my heart is fine and I got an athlete's heart, he said, yo, do you have anxiety? You suffer from panic attacks? It sounds like you're describing an anxiety attack to me. And I'm like, I don't think so. And he was like, yo, you stressed out about something? And I was like, hell yeah. And so, in my mind, I'm like, okay, all I got to do is get another job, get out of my mama house, get back in position, and everything will be good. Next job I got was the Breakfast Club. And, 4 years later, 5 years later, after having tremendous success and, you know, New York Times bestseller and nationally syndicated, all of this stuff, more money than I've ever seen in my life, still having those panic attacks, and I don't know why. So it can't be the money. So, it was just this time, it came through a moment of peace. I was on vacation and I was sitting by the pool and I was watching all my family and all my friends. And that was the first time in a long time I didn't have any anxiety, no, depression, anything. Just I felt free and light. And I was like, man, how do I feel like this all the time without having to take vacations all the time? And so I was just like, you know what? I'm gonna go to therapy. I'm gonna just start going. And that's what I did. I just started going once a week, every Friday. And then, of course the days change, over the years, but it's just like I just started to realize how much I was unpacking, because when you start going to therapy, man, you start going down them rabbit holes. So you go there for one thing, you think you're going to deal with your anxiety or your bouts of depression or your PTSD. Next thing you know, you realize you got all this unhealed trauma, from childhood, issues with your father or whatever it may be. For me, it was my father, just different things, different layers that I was peeling back. And so, I've been on that journey to healing and wholeness ever since.
Well, Um, that's my long pause. I think accountability and talking about an emotional ecosystem. When you think about fatherhood, um, abandonment, loneliness, and not knowing how to process those emotions, we mask them, we buy things, we do things with people, and we're not necessarily our best selves. We don't know how to feel about ourselves when no one's there to be accountable, explain those things. And then years pass, and we don't have a healthy practice like therapy.
That's right.
And so you start a foundation, you know, but you start a foundation for mental health. Why?
Well, for me, like I said, when I was going on my own journey, and as you start going on your own journey, you start to meet so many different people. Like I started to meet so many different, brothers and sisters who would come up to me and tell me, hey, I started going to therapy because of you, or my husband started going to therapy because of you, or my boyfriend started going to therapy because of you, or my brother, or my uncle, and thank you just for speaking about it. And then I started meeting, a lot of people that were already doing the work, right? So you got organizations in Philadelphia who I shout out all the time, like Black Men Heal. And, Black Men Heal, they actually provide, free therapy for Black men in Philadelphia. I read an article about them in the Philadelphia Inquirer. That's how I got put on to them. And, when I went to go reach out to them, they was already reaching out to me via DM. So I brought them on Breakfast Club and, I funded some of their efforts, just to get some brothers some therapy. And, South Carolina State University, which is my mother's alma mater, I opened up an endowment fund for them last year. I gave them $250,000, and it was for people who were going to major in either English, because that's my mom's major, because she was an English teacher, communications, of course, because I do radio, TV, and anything in the mental health field. So I'm already donating. I donate money to Silence to Shame and all of these different organizations. So I just said to myself, man, since I'm already a conduit for people to come to, why not create a foundation so we can raise, our goal is $100 million over the next 5 years, and just keep partnering with these, different Black-led organizations and experts to, invest in mental wealth. I call it mental wealth because I really do feel like it's an investment into your mental wealth. I think, we say health is wealth, right? So mental wealth, and our 3 pillars for the organization, the Mental Wealth Alliance, is train, teach, and treat, because we want to prepare thousands of Black people to become research and clinical service providers in psychology or social work or other related fields. And we want to do that through training and by continuing to establish scholarship funds like I did at South Carolina State, to provide training to increase the number of mental health care professionals, because we want to take it from 4% to 14% to at least reflect the population of Black people in this country. And they got to be, culturally competent, therapists. And the other pillar is teach, and because we're advocating for the implementation of SEL and mental health literacy in public schools from kindergarten to 12th grade. And the other pillar is treat, because we want to support, these culturally competent organizations like Black Men Heal in providing free therapy, because I want to provide free therapy to more than 10 million Black people over the next 5 years, just by supporting, organizations that already exist and, helping us to fund the establishment of new organizations. So for me, it's already work that I was doing. I'm just like, yo, let's just make it official through a foundation.
Yeah, no, I think it's it's easy. It seems smooth, but I think it's giving Black people a mental practice. We've got to have a healthy mental health practice. You cannot be angry and not understand that you need to practice and get with the mental health professional. And I think that for those who don't know, they may not know why cultural competency is important.
Oh man.
You might want to share with them why it's important to have a Black therapist, a therapist in your community.
Yeah, I mean, for me, my mindset when I first started therapy, I said I didn't want somebody who may have the same biases are the same traumas as me. Because, you know, when you Black in this country, waking up every day and just existing, you know, can cause trauma. And, you know, it's so interesting, man, because, you know, when you start talking about the things that you're going through, it's people that are coming to you and have these conversations with you that you didn't even think, like mentors of mine that I look at and I'm like, yo, this is the strongest Black man I know, telling me that they feel the same way when they get in their car. And these are former police officers. I got a mentor who's a former police officer who's a Black man. He's like 63, I think. But in his mind, even though he's a former police officer, he still feels like a target when he gets in his car, right? So it's like he was talking to me about his grandson. Now his grandson, he was on the phone with his grandson, and his grandson's phone just cut off, and it was like 2 a.m. Grandson was leaving his girlfriend's house. So he said immediately his mind goes to, man, what if he got pulled over by the cops and they about to kill my grandson? Like, why? Like, why is that a thought, right? But that's what being Black in America is. So, you know, we constantly got this cortisol, you know, shooting off in our veins. So in my mind, I was like, I didn't want to, you know, sit down and talk to a Black therapist because I wanted to talk to somebody who had a totally different experience than mine to make sure I'm not tripping, right? So I was like, man, maybe I'm tripping. Like maybe I'm, you know, maybe I'm just overthinking this, or maybe I'm just paranoid for no reason. So 5 years ago, my mindset was I want to sit down with, I wanted an Asian woman because I wanted somebody that I felt like did not understand my experience at all. But man, if you think trying to find a Black therapist is hard, try to find an Asian woman, right? So I ended up just getting with a white woman who was really good, you know, really good. But she was really good because she was more of a sounding board for me just to get off. And like, she understood. You know what I'm saying? Like, and that kind of made me feel a little different, right? Okay, like there's white people out here that get it on an emotional level. Like right now we're in this place where everybody gets it kind of like they're trying to get it on a corporate level, right? Like everybody's trying to have diversity in Hollywood and, you know, spend money with Black media and, you know, make sure that their staff and their board got Black people. But that's professional. I'm talking about on a personal, everyday, emotional level. Do you understand what a Black person goes through? You could never truly understand, but do you have an inkling, right? Like you're not gaslighting us saying things like America's not a racist country and stuff like that. Like do you really get it? And she seemed to really get it. So it let me know that I wasn't crazy. But you know, as you do more therapy, yeah, you do want to sit down with somebody that's culturally competent because that white therapist may understand, but I don't think they can truly help you unpack, right? Because there's certain emotions that you would have to have felt and experienced and learned coping mechanisms for them, and you can only be Black to truly understand. So a white person can't really tell me how to woosah from certain things, right? I can talk to them about it and they can understand and make me feel like, man, just hearing a white person say, oh, that's fucked up. Things shouldn't be like that. That's you know, relieving. But I'm talking about as far as like dealing with it and healing that trauma, you got to talk to somebody who's dealt with the same kind of trauma. So that's why, to me, you know, having a culturally competent Black therapist is important.
You know, the thing about a few of my friends who are psychologists and sociologists and all of the Black health professionals. I mean, if COVID had shown us anything, is that Black health professionals are in such a need. Mm-hmm. You know, they're sitting there having these conversations. Well, Black people aren't going to take the shot. Well, let's see. We gave it to the people in the hospital. We didn't have a problem with that. But to that person cleaning your room, to that person serving you food, to the person riding the bus, they had to wait to get their shot, but they had to serve you. So we back to the end of the line, and you don't feel like I'm even traumatized getting the help I need. And you know I'm out here first, front line serving you, feeling like a servant. So I think traumatically, it's a constant, you're last. It's a constant, you're not respected. It's a constant beg of some sort for my tax dollars, for my respect, for my family, for my children. So I think the thing that you're doing is allowing us to be able to share honestly amongst ourselves things that we are ashamed of.
Word.
I'm having anxiety. I need to be able to tell Charmaine, I love you, man. What's up? Because I might need to lean into your ear so you can tell me I'm okay for the moment.
That's right.
And then, yeah, my dad did not tell me enough I love you. So you know what? I tell brothers, you got to give what you didn't get. You cannot give what you got.
Man.
You literally are going to have to give what you didn't get.
Yeah.
Like you can't heal giving what you got.
Yeah, I can't pour into you if I wasn't even poured into. Like, you know, and that's even now, like, you know, I'm learning how to definitely deal with my anxiety. But, you know, I was talking to Sarah Jake Roberts because I heard her talk about how, you know, every new level of your success is gonna bring new anxiety. And I was just like, man, I asked her why is that? And she was just like, it's the fear of the unknown. Right? It's the things that you don't understand. And that's what it like something like fatherhood, that's that for me. Because I don't want to make the same mistakes my father made, you know, with my wife or my children. Right. So it's like, yeah, that definitely does, you know, bring a different level of anxiety. And like my pops, man, I remember sitting in therapy one time and just bawling, right? Just bawling, like, because it was like one of those breakthroughs for me, like, the reason I'm upset at my pops, and I love my pops. Don't get me wrong. Like I've always historically loved my pops. I just hated, you know, how he did my mom. Right? You know, him and my mom got a divorce. He had a whole other family. You know, that type of shit. Yeah, he's an old player, old 1960s, 70s player. Right? So he had a whole other family 3 miles away in the same hometown, and plus, you know, a couple kids all through, you know, South Carolina, all up and down the East Coast. But I remember sitting in therapy bawling because I realized like he never taught me anything. Right? Like he would, you know, he don't get me wrong, he handed me the autobiography of Malcolm X, and you know, he gave me Message to the Black Man by Elijah Muhammad, and he would make me sit down and watch Minister Farrakhan speeches, and he would put little, you know, he would say little things here and there that I would pick up on. But I'm talking about like he would punish me for not knowing things he didn't teach me. Like I remember one time in particular, I was following him, right? I'm a new driver. I'm like 16, 17 years old. So I'm following him. I'm driving a car. He's driving in front of me. He runs the stop sign, so I run the stop sign. I'm following him. So then he pulls over to the side of the highway. I pull over to the side of the highway. He gets out. I roll the window down. He slaps the shit out of me and tells me to wake up. And I'm like, well, goddamn. You know what I'm saying? I'm following you. I remember that vividly now, but I'm following you. So I'm doing what you're doing. You ran the stop sign. I don't know how to drive. I'm 16, 17 years old. You ain't never taught me how to drive. You understand what I'm saying? Right. So it's just like he would punish me for things that, you know, he didn't necessarily teach me, and I held that against him for so long. On top of the things that, you know, I felt like he did wrong to my mom. But I mean, I love him, and what made me, you know, heal, so to speak, with that situation was realizing that he was just a man that was you know, playing with the cards he was dealt. You know what I'm saying? He was doing the best he could. That's all. Like he dealt with substance abuse. You know, he dealt with drug abuse. You know, he was dealing with his own mental health issues, which he finally told me when I started talking about mine. So I think it was 2000, let me see. When I put out Shook One, it was 2018. So yeah, it was Thanksgiving of 2018. And I had a little cousin who killed himself. He was 25 years old, and he had tried to kill himself 4 times. Like he cut his wrist, did everything, cut his wrist, shot himself in the stomach, took pills. And when he, you know, finally completed suicide, he had shot himself in the mouth, put the gun in his mouth and shot himself. And he used to always like do little odd jobs with my dad, because my dad does construction. So between that and reading my book, my dad just told me like, man, you know, I've been reading your book, man, and, you know, just seeing what happened to, you know, little cuz. He was like, yo, man, I went to therapy, you know, 2 or 3 times out of the week in my life. And I was on 10 to 12 different medications. You know what I'm saying? And like, he told me that. And when he told me that, it just put a lot in perspective, because I just started thinking about a lot of different things that I remember when I was younger, like, you know, him sleeping with his knife and his gun by his bed, because he said the devil was coming to get him. That's just paranoia. That's just anxiety. You know what I'm saying? I saw him deal with a lot of these things when I was young, but I just didn't know what it was, right? And you think about that even with your grandma and stuff like that. When your grandma said, "I got to take my nerve medicine. My nerve's bad." Like that's all anxiety. So it's just like, yeah, you know, like I can't pour into people what I didn't get poured into myself. But you know, I'm learning.
Well, you know, I think the other thing is for me when I'm talking to, clearly I've got a couple of brothers I talk to at least every day, if not every other day. We kind of call ourselves the accountability brothers. But literally, what I do, obviously, as a practice, is try not to build any new prisons. Like what you call anxiety and situations. For me, I work hard not to build any new prisons for myself, because I put myself in prison in a minute. If I'm struggling and don't feel like the cash is where I want, I didn't meet that place, I put myself in, a shame prison. I'm looking, I'm feeling like, I got a year older, I may not accomplish, I got doubt on my face, it's over my spirit, I'm not feeling as good, I'm not working out, put myself in another prison. And what I learned was there was a cycle to my whole experience, that I would build prisons for myself, and they're emotional prisons. My abandonment, somebody's not in my life, that was a prison. And I had the abandonment prison. I would just build up, I'd go in there because I felt like I needed that person. And that person may not have known, or it might be a relationship with that, versus sharing emotional language. And that's what therapy did for me. It allowed me to learn languages to tell people I do have an expectation if we have a relationship. And I tell that to my team. Yes, there's going to come a time that if it's somebody that I believe in and love, you may not have to like them, but I'm going to do something for them because they depend on me to be who I am to them. And I think that for me, when I'm saying brothers, is our dads, like you came to, my dad had, by the time the I love yous, I'm giving it to him because clearly he had dementia by then.
Wow.
So all I have is a video, Charlamagne, where I'm literally making sure he's in the last 2 years of his life, and I'm videoing every moment that I can, just so he could hear it, and I still would be able to think about when I wanted him to say it. And white America made the "everybody wants to be like their dad" commercial, but they never made the Black one. And I was like, well, damn. And there's so much of that Peter Pan and Fly, they never know real brothers being Peter Pan. But here I am, the one thing that I wanted. My mom always said, "I love you." But my dad, I had to get my own recording so that I didn't feel like I was a little boy with him. Because sometimes you, not only you go back to 16, you go back to 7. I'm trying to make sure that I'm with him saying, "I love you," so that now, because he's passed, I can at least tap in and remember, you know what? We did say it to each other before we split, And so I tell brothers, I didn't take a big trip with my dad. And I felt bad thinking that all the people that I treated, out of all the people, no matter how I felt about it, I could have taken him on a big trip. And so I believe in giving what I didn't get. I believe in taking down my prisons and telling people and having accountable friends. So when I'm off, somebody say, "What's going on?" Because I need somebody to ask me. I'm on an emotional recovery for the rest of my life. And I got to have people who can make sure that I don't destroy me, because that's what mental health does. It will have you destroy. What you described is a young brother who literally was on a destructive path that needed rescuing. And it was full time. And it was the level of treatment that somebody had to be around the clock. Because the pain, the anxiety, the animosity, no dad, lack of respect, fear of leaving the house, the circumstances, debt, aggressiveness, misconfusion, alienated, and feeling like that as a young person, you just want to check out. Like, they really ain't got no good spots for me.
That's right.
I always got to beg for what's mine. I drink your product, I drink your soda, but you don't want to think about my community.
That's right.
You're giving all the tennis shoe names to guys that play, but you won't give no all-stars to my community, academic all-stars. Why don't you do that? Build up my community. If I'm born in a poor neighborhood, I got a predeterminant all of a sudden.
That's right.
The police gonna profile me when I'm in my own hood, but you knew I was born to this hood. How could society treat us like this? That's traumatic.
That's right. And a lot of times, man, we we become what we hate, and I always tell people, if you don't deal with your trauma gonna deal with you. And that trauma, man, would hurt people. We end up hurting others, and the people that we end up hurting are usually the ones that look just like us, the closest ones to us. And that's the real trick, right? The real trick is that you got a white supremacist system that traumatized the hell out of Black people. And we took that trauma right back to our own communities and, started putting that trauma on each other. Because that's what energy is. Sir Isaac Newton said the law of energy is never lost or destroyed. It just merely transferred from one party to the next. So you got this group of people that's been traumatized. So now all we do is traumatize each other. That's the real, technology in it all.
Yeah, I find that the studying of our history, the strengthening and the radicalizing of our minds for brotherhood, family, things that are even in this movement. I like that, and I don't want to leave that, but I think even being a publisher in the state of emergency.
Hold on one second.
You ready?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so, trauma, healing, emotions, but you're giving voice. You have given voice to so many. You are now a publisher, state of emergency. Talk about giving voice and opportunity and how important it is, because it's not just the publishing, it's the podcast.
Well, I feel like if I'm doing something that's only benefiting me, it's not big enough. I've always been the person, and I've said this throughout my life, I would rather throw assists than score points. It's little different elements I take from, my mom, my grandma, my dad, because my dad always had like a business, right? So my dad had a fish market that we all used to be in when I was young, and my dad would have like a little sugar shack, little sugar shack in the country where, you selling illegal alcohol and, frying fish and all of that type of stuff. But even my grandma, what I always saw them do was give. And my grandma would always say, manners will take you where money won't. And when I used to like be around my dad, just watching him, he was the life of the party, right? Because he always had something to give. And I just always thought that was cool. I always thought that was dope. I always thought it was dope when I would see, somebody buy out the bar or somebody like buy everybody. I remember one time, that's just why me and Lil Duval probably so close. I watch him do things like this. I saw him buy everybody food in Waffle House. So I've always enjoyed just assisting people, you know what I mean? And now I have different language for it. So I call it pouring into people. But man, honestly, it just fulfills me, right? And so I've always, my job is platform. So I've always had a radio show, and now you do podcasts and you do TV. And it's like, for me, if I can provide, somebody the opportunity to lift up whatever they're doing, I'm going to do it. And, I just been blessed. Thank God I've been blessed to have success in certain fields, right? So when you talk about the publishing aspect of it, I put out 2 books. My first book, Black Privilege, was a New York Times bestseller. It was on the bestsellers list for like 8-10 weeks or something like that. I think longer. I don't even remember now, but it sold a lot of copies, right? My second book, Shook One, it sold a lot of copies, that and some people say it started a conversation about, mental health in the Black community. And then with the Breakfast Club and my podcast, other authors that come on the show, when they come on the show, they see their books get a bump. So these book publishing companies, they take note of all of that. They see all of that. They're like, well, wow, this guy, he sells his own books. He can help other people sell his books. So when it came time for me to, get a third book deal, yeah, I could have took a big ass check. I could have got a big, super huge check, right? Just for me. But it's like, nah, how about I take less money and say, hey man, I want a book imprint. A book imprint. Yeah, I want to be able to publish Black voices like myself. I want to create safe spaces, for these so-called unsafe voices. You know what I mean? Like I want to tell these Black stories. I want to help these people who are telling these unique Black stories. I want to be able to help them get their stories out. And Simon and Schuster, they've been great partners with me since my first book, Black Privilege. So they was absolutely positively with it, right? So it's just like, people see all of this stuff now, like, because I think we announced it. We announced that the book imprint happened we launched it last October, but Tamika Mallory's book just came out this May 11th. But this wasn't something that I thought about 6 months ago. This wasn't something I thought about a year ago. This is something that I thought about 2 years ago. You know what I mean? And it just takes time for all these deals to come into fruition.
So as an OG, I'm saying, nah, it was planted. You think about all the things that you talk about, your dad smacking you, but you lived through it.
Yeah,
The love that it says, and even as we, feel a miss, there's something that he gave you. There's some of him in you that you can't take back out. That's what I learned about my dad, as I forgave him for who he couldn't be to me. Like, I just got to forgive you because you're going to be my dad. That's all I got. There's nobody else. There's nobody else that says it. And, he gave you something. And so when I was listening to you talk about your dad, he was a builder.
Yeah,
and every little brick, no matter what it is, genetically, there's a manifestation. And he's like, well, my son's in publishing. If he's in media, it includes everything. And so it's going to come his way. Because that's what it's supposed to come. Allah's going to bless him and it's going to be bountiful. So it's happening. And I say that to say, when you put in these seeds, they're coming back out. And a lot of what you see was going to happen because you've actually had it in you as a family. Because what family is what you're talking about? Your mother going to college. A lot of folks don't have moms that went to college at all.
Yeah, and she was an English teacher. Like my mom was the person who told me, read things that don't pertain to you. That's what she would say to me all the time. Read things that don't pertain to you. So like, you see a book about Malcolm X, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, of course we're gonna read Message to the Black Man. But are you gonna read Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret by Judy Blume? Are you gonna read, Ramona Quimby, Age 8 by Beverly Cleary? Are you gonna read, my book of Bible stories? Because my mom was Jehovah's Witness too. So that was me. I was picking up all the Watchtowers, the Awakes, my book of Bible stories, and, grabbing the Quran, because my dad had that, and, sitting down watching the Farrakhan speeches and watching the Source Awards, you know what I mean? So and watching ESPN and watching Golden Girls, you know what I mean? So I was just taking all of these different, things in. So yeah, you're right. I got I'm 50% my mom and my dad, the divine feminine and the sacred masculine.
Yeah, and belief in the divine, and that is something that is, if you don't have anything else. When I think about how prophetic in your name, how prophetic in just hearing the lineage of your family and the presence, even in our dad's imperfection. My dad was a preacher, so in all the imperfection, they still believed and gave us faith when there was hopelessness. And I think that a lot of times when I hear people say your name and I think about what you're giving the community, I just want them to know how there is a divine presence in your life and that you've always acknowledged it and that it was connected. And that all of us, even to get our lives right, we're going to have to be able to pray, meditate, and have some divine principles if we plan to heal in our lives so that we can be closer to the divine as we move forward.
That's
so
right.
We've launched blackbookstore.com. We're obviously carrying Tamiko's book. I appreciate the time we spent together, brother. Look forward to it as always.
And please, I want everybody, to go out there and get to me, because book, man, State of Emergency, How to Win in the Country We Build, is available everywhere that you buy books now.
That's right. And blackbookstore.com and any other provider, but support some Black bookstores. So for me, I want us to make sure that we keep our currency close. Charlamagne the God, Munson Steve rolling out. Much love, my brother.
Munson, thank you, King. Peace.
Peace.